Welcome back. This is round 3 of the Top Cut at Netrunner World Championship 2023. My name is Andre.
And I'm Captain Nice.
Thanks so much, Captain Nice, for joining. You were playing this last week, and how'd it go?
It was absolutely brutal out there. 9 rounds of double-sided Swiss is not something that I'm familiar with, but I did pretty okay for myself, so I'm happy with my result.
Well done. Well, hey, I'm glad that you can join us today, and we have quite a game. Now, these players, we're going to get confirmation whether these are in the lower brackets or the upper brackets. They might be undefeated. Otherwise, if they're not, whoever loses this round will be leaving the tournament. On the left, that is Council. They're playing Restoring Humanity, and we have seen lists like this. I'm not sure if they've actually been on stream just yet. I think we saw one very quickly in the first round today, but this is a punitive Counter-Strike list. What do you expect when you see Restoring Humanity? I kind of now default to punitive Counter-Strike.
Yeah, that's like the only real way that I've seen it played. Like, I have to be honest, I haven't played against this ID in forever. It isn't like the most popular ID out there. But yeah, I think that like bacterial programming,
it's a wild card. Yeah, we talked about Obokata Protocol being banned out recently, so this 5-3 is taking the slot. And what you'd expect maybe in a punitive list, having 3 Fujis and less bacterial, it's actually flipped. It's only 2 Fujis because bacterial programming lets you draw into that your digital life, and you get that 16 credit play. Sometimes you can get some really wild swings into punitive. We'll see again. This is open deck list, so Mildesort's not going to stumble into this. It's more about how Council they can produce a board state that forces Mildesort to have to interact, and I think a big card here is Regenesis.
Yeah, Regenesis, for if you don't know how it works, like Andre, do you care to explain how it works?
Yeah, so Regenesis is a 1-point agenda. It's sometimes a difficult thing to put into the deck because it closes the punitive windows, but the idea is that if you score it out and then you reveal a face-down agenda in Archives, that is now a 4-point 3 advanced card, which gets you to game point really fast. Now we have double ice, some really scary ice into this matchup, some of the scariest stuff you can face check into, things like a Teeny, Saisentan, and Nancy. So we'll see how quickly Mildesort comes up with a killer. And in terms of killers here, we're looking at 2 copies of Echelon, which early game isn't fantastic. You need a lot of more things to hit the table.
It's really interesting to see. Like, people have been on Carmen mostly like in the past few months, but like I've seen nothing but Echelons all tournament. It seems that Inox are probably pivoting to that.
It's like a 50-50. I think we've seen both, and we've been impressed with both of them. Again, depending on board state, we saw, I think, Bridgman paying 4 credits for that drafter. You hate to see that as much as it is pretty common. But Mildesort here, getting through some card draw, getting through, I think it was a Strike Fund, and now Paladin Puemo, she's hitting the table. Mildesort looking again, you know that face checking can be incredibly lethal, and this game is largely about economy. So holding a liberated accounts there, you definitely have probably the time in this matchup to liberate some economy off of it. Now cancel drawing up again. There's such a big difference. I think in Swiss, it's so easy for an opponent to not see your angle and suddenly die. I've heard so many players of like, yeah, I got a punitive kill on turn 2 because they hit the bacterial. But now it's so much more about like setting a trap and forcing interaction. We talked about Regenesis. Regenesis needs the agenda to be face down. And we used to see it back in the day with Obokata Protocol. You would run Archives just to flip the Obokata up, and you could choose not to steal it. It has an additional cost. But with things with Fuji and Bacterial, it's just happening, and that's a really hard thing to have to deal with.
This is also a really good start for Council. Like, they iced, all 3 central servers are iced, and they have, that was 2 hedge funds that I just saw, so they have plenty of money currently.
Yeah, and this is important. We've seen so many of these core players make Hoshiko work really hard to be able to get that flip ability. We're seeing, cards not adding into Archives until it's been iced up. And we haven't mentioned Restoring Humanity. That gets you a credit if there's a face-down card in Archives. So now doubly you want to keep Hoshiko out. We'll see what it takes before Mildesort actually even makes the first run. It's terrifying into Saisentans, into that early, even a Vampire Nasa is kind of an ugly swing.
Face checking a Vampire Nasa is absolutely brutal. Like,
yeah,
it's a 4-credit swing, it's 2 net damage, and the corp gets more tempo. It's like...
Yeah, it can be really rough. We're just getting updated from production that this is a lower bracket game, so both Council and Mildesort have found their first loss in the top cut, so this is, potentially it's going to be the end of the line for one of these players. We'll see how it works out. Definitely very stressful, especially on camera. Exciting matches we're always going to be getting here. Now, Liberated coming down, Mildesort has the time to liberate this up. If we push into remote server, it's also very important to understand Council there. In terms of defensive upgrades, we have 2 Anewic Void. So you actually can sort of transition to like Jinteki Glacier. Pinhole Threadings, they're being cut from Hoshiko lists. We're actually not seeing a lot of Pinhole Threadings in this whole tournament. It's mostly the criminal decks.
Yeah, and it might be that Mildesort is going to wish that he has a pinhole threading in this matchup, because Anoetic is really hard to deal with into like double or triple ice remote servers.
Hansei review, discarding a card for 5 credits. That's actually a 6-credit play now with the Restoring Humanity, and this is where things start to get interesting. We're not going to see any way that you fast advance out or Regenesis, so it's going to be left on the table. So we'll see now. Running archives potentially can be lethal. Bacterial programming. I think the big question a lot of times is how many punitive counter-strikes does Council have in their hand? Because I think there's only 2 or 3 in the list. Well, it can't be more than 3. I think it's often 2.
It is 3, correct.
Oh, it's 3. Fantastic. So more likely. We also saw Mildesorte play to Steelskin Scarring relatively early in the game. That is a card that can be so important. It's an insurance policy all Anarchs are packing, let alone sometimes the easiest way to get that fire is just to face check into ice and then make that trade a bit more favorable in your advantage. But now you're only tracking 2 Steelskins, so punitive Counter-Strike into Steelskin, that's a hard thing to land lethals.
Yeah, it's really hard. When you have a Steelskin in your opening hand or you draw it really early, you kind of want it to set up real fast, but also you want to, if you know you're against a punitive list, you want to keep it in hand because that is going to keep you alive. So this is a very hard call to make, but he's probably going to draw into another one at some point.
Yeah, there's all 3 in the list for sure. So we'll see that forward momentum is definitely worth that safety. Cleaver coming down. That's another strike fund as well. We see a Hippo in a hand. It's an alt art I'm not too familiar with, but Hippo is going to be really important. Again, a lot of the ice res in this deck is incredibly expensive. We do see the Cleaver. The only barrier that we're worried about is Tattoo Bola, which you do break for 1 as much as it does do that swap-a-roo into something else. And Council, they're building that remote server. Now, this turn, in theory, Council is threatening Regenesis to score 4 points. We'll see if Mildesorte has something to say about it.
It's also always really interesting to see a nice lead line of 4 single ice servers. Although the Hippo does deal with that extremely nicely once he has his breakers out.
So we're going to see how soon can you find the Echelon again. Anarchs. Consistency. In some ways, incredibly inconsistent. In other ways, they can be the absolute opposite. We don't have cards like Self-Modifying Call to Mutual Favor. If your Echelon's on the bottom 2 of the deck, your Echelon's on the bottom 2 of the deck. Now, the price being played, so you're going to dig a bit deeper. We see a Daily Cast as an option. I believe that other alt art, I think that's a moshing, excuse me. So there's only one legal option here. That's going to be the Daily Cast coming in for free. Feels pretty good. The Steelskin will fire once it's trashed, so you draw 2. Technically, you get to see those cards first, but it's not like Mildesorte's making any decisions. Just paying 1 to rip through a couple cards and get a cheap Daily Cast on the table.
So the nice thing is, usually you're very happy about milling the Steelskin, because that gives you a lot of value, but right now there's only 1 left in the deck, so this is actually not that great of a hit currently.
Yeah, that price is, we've actually seen that on table before. We saw a player lose their second Cleaver in a Program Destruction matchup. Sometimes the price can be pretty hefty. We do see the twinning. A way that you can get charges, of course, the Paladin Puemo, and that multi-axis card's been really important this whole weekend.
And we see a Maw being drawn now, I think.
Yeah, the console of choice. Anarch's not spoiled for options. We'll see if that can come down. Again, Disruption is a nice way to get those punitives out of hand as much as, potentially you'll find another one when you steal a Bacterial Programming. But Council, going to get away unchecked on their remote server, whether it's a Rashida or a Regenesis. Exciting to see regardless. Up on a healthy, I think it's about 20 credits to only 5. Mildesorte can't really afford to interact. What's the worst to face check into? You're probably a Seisenton, right? Sometimes you just lose the game.
I think purely from Seisenton is the one that's most likely to be lethal, but I think from a purely tempo perspective, I think it's Vampirnissa.
Yeah, you res that for 5, you draw 2 cards again, kind of entirely symmetrical what that does to you and the corporation.
I also like how much flexibility it gives you.
Yeah.
If you're completely flooded, you can just draw the 1 card. I don't believe you can draw 0 cards.
I think it's you may, so you can choose not to do anything.
Oh, you may.
Yeah.
So then it's so flexible.
So that's a Spin Doctor in the remote server, getting cracked before the mandatory council, just getting more money back into the deck. I believe it was a hedge fund and a Hansei review. So again, getting the credit lead is so important, and Mildesorte doesn't have a lot of credits in his credit pool, but he has a lot of access to credits. Again, that is, I think at least 2 charges, maybe even a bit more on the liberated accounts, and Daily Cast is going to start firing next turn. So Council, this is where it's very difficult to understand. Do you start pushing a 5-3? Do you do install advance? Because inherently, not many of these agendas are exactly tempo positive the way that you see in a lot of other decks.
Yeah, if I was Council, I would probably start pushing, but it depends a little bit on what their hand is at this point. But,
yeah.
Well, they're double icing, so it seems that they're getting ready to start getting this game forward.
I think you love the Regenesis here, because if it gets you to 4 points, Mildesorte doesn't have the ability to not run. You install advance, that's the game. So if that's a Bacterial, that's a Fuji, you're setting up these lines. Again, you talked about the 2 Steelskins out. That's incredibly important, and both players obviously know that.
One thing that I was looking for in the list is an NGO front, maybe even a single copy, because that does
Yeah.
kind of bait runs.
There's nothing.
Like, no, there's no NGO. There's nothing that is advanceable, I believe.
Besides agendas.
Yeah, so if there's something that goes install advanced into the remote, it has to be an agenda, and Mildesorte has to respect that.
So Council now 2 cards on the table. That is one also an un-iced remote server. You're expecting a Spin Doctor there. Sometimes when you put face downs in archives, it's nice to have an insurance policy, but generally insurance policy is some Wayland meat damage. So another Liberated using Paladin Puemo's credits. This is big money here, and Council 2 ice guarding an unadvanced card. Would love to see the Regenesis. Mildesorte again finding whether we found another breaker here. We're looking for a Unity. We're looking for an Echelon System Gateway Suite.
So I have not been tracking turns here, but Hoshiko has yet to flip, right?
I think Hoshiko has yet to make a run. And we've seen so many decks at this event. While Hoshiko was targeted by a ban list, obviously she's still performing very, very well. But we've seen corporations actually play relatively different than even a couple months ago, where they're going out of the way to make Hoshiko work for those accesses.
Exactly.
It is a Rashida in the remote server.
No Regenesis.
I believe that's a full art from the German Netrunner communities. That's going to be draw 3 plus the mandatory, so 3 more credits as well. Yeah, no Regenesis. But there's also subliminal messagings. I think there's 2 in the list, and it's such a fun card when, you know, you can discard it at the end of the turn to get that Restoring Humanity. It's such a nice Hansei review target. It's a very flexible card, especially when, you know, the runner hasn't done the thing they're named after.
And it's also absolutely fantastic if you discard it with Anoetic Void. It feels
Oh, so good, yeah. Nice interaction. Smid Doctor again. Council just drew, what, 6 cards this turn? There you go, your digital life. That's why you're incentivized to stack all that draw. So counting out those dollar bills you're holding, paying 2. I think the question was going into this event, what's going to be the biggest your digital life on stream? This is not going to be the biggest, but this is the biggest so far.
What is the biggest we've had so far?
I think like normal PD 6 or something. It's okay. It's good so far. Council, they have it. Second ice on archives again. Restoring Humanity knows that they want to squirrel away those agendas to get the Regenesis to be a really big agenda. Something in the remote server, passing the turn Mildesorte.
And there's another phase down in archives, so the chances of there being a 5-3 in there are getting more and more likely as time passes on.
Regenesis is a 3 of in the deck. I think there's some considerations whether you want to run that 1-pointer, because again, in these 5-3 decks, there's these ideas of punitive windows. As soon as a runner steals 1 Regenesis, you only have 1 more punitive window in the game, because then, well, yeah, largely 1 more, because otherwise it's hard for them to steal a 3-pointer and another 3-pointer and not win the game. We can see if this matters here, but Mildesorte definitely looking for breakers. I don't know if we've seen his hand that much. He's holding it pretty close to the chest, but he's just drawing.
Yeah,
What's also hard here is sometimes if you draw a last click, and not that you're worried about a Fuji on the table, it needs to be double advanced, you can lose the cards from hand. That has an on-score text, but we have a bit too many misbones, probably going to hit the bin.
Yeah, Ms. Bones is not going to do a whole lot in this matchup.
It's just like Spin Doctors and Rashidas, yeah.
Yeah, get 1 for Anoetic Void, I guess.
Oh man, Banhar too. Banhar has been so good at this event, and into this matchup with things like Sai Santana and Anansi, you can't really Banhar in, let alone into punitive, so maybe a nice meta call. Another Rashida. Council's hand. We've seen 1 Spin Doctor, but it was for, you know, for economy cards.
So now I'm actually worried whether they might be looking for the Regenesis,
Yeah.
but just not getting. Maybe both players are not getting what they wanted. Mildesorte is clearly looking for an Echelon, and Council is looking for a Regenesis. Okay, they're pushing now, so maybe this is it then.
They might have install double advance, but just on top of an Anoetic, again, there's very little upgrades. It's only one option, if I'm not mistaken, in Council's deck.
Okay, so this is 2 in the remote. This might be the play. This might be Regenesis into Anoetic, and
Yeah.
a 3rd ice on the remote.
And you're safe on archives, let alone punitive, but of course Spin Doctor if it needs to go that way. Mildesorte with just a cleaver and a hippo. The mod's been 6 credits for just some MU, as much as the threat there does exist, and just click to draw again.
So I love seeing board states that I've never seen before, and I've never seen a board state with single eyes on R&D and HQ, triple on the remote, and 2 on archives.
Yeah, the Anarch U, but I wouldn't even call it that as much as that comes up. Echelon hitting the table. 2 strength. Really awkward numbers on Echelon here. Sai Santan you're going to do for 3, but if you hit a Nancy, you have to boost twice. It's like 6 credits, and then you're paying for subroutines.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you on screen. So 6 to boost will get you up to 6, and then 1 for subroutine. That's a lot of money, and money is so important in this matchup. As much as the Hippo can just like probably bust open a central server, R&D or HQ,
So currently Anansi, breaking it with Echelon is incredibly expensive. I think it costs 3 plus 3 and then another
3.
So that's 9 in total
It's
to break
like
Anansi.
MK Ultra back in the day, 3rd Rashida.
Oh dear.
Counting out 3 more cards plus the mandatory, we're far deep into it. Drawing back up Council, there's no way they don't have what they need here. It looks like we're just checking what's in Archive. That's not a run, just kind of, getting a lay of the land there.
I believe that's 3 phase downs in Archives currently.
It seems like that. It might even be more. Like, Council's been drawing a lot and has been building a board state. It's a bit hard to count those credits. Again, the reds, I believe, are 5s. There's a whole bunch of greens there, but a lot of the ice in this deck can be expensive. So that's the interesting thing, though, is if the runner runs and there's a well-placed agenda, there's your first subliminal. You can choose not to res and just use that money and leverage it into the punitive counter strikes. Mildesorte best that he can have is the final copy of Steelskin in hand. And if that's the case, you need, I think, triple punitive. What's the math on it?
The math on punitive is elusive, and I have never been able to figure it out, honestly.
Again, I'm waiting for that beautiful Regenesis. A subliminal messaging is a card that, like the cat, just keeps coming back, especially if Mildesorte, where 0 runs in, I reckon 6 or 7 turns into the game.
I'm pretty certain Council has seen like a gazillion cards at this point. Like they are so far into the deck. Also, thing to keep in mind, Restoring Humanity is a 44 card ID. Well, 40, but 44 cards.
Generally do 44. The second ice, again, some respect. Second ice on R&D as well, saying, hey, you get to the point where Hippo can be an issue. I think the strongest threat on the table is actually Maw.
Yeah.
Mawing the punitive from hand buys you massive windows. Again, Archive Memories was banned out of the game a while ago. Sometimes you saw it as a 1-of to give you extra reach in punitive lists, but if Council loses a punitive and is only holding 1 at the end, they're going to have issues closing the game.
This is basically just both players building up a board state and then pointing guns at each other and saying, come at me right now.
It's the Wild West here. We're looking for a decoder. It's a unity in terms of some of those scary code gates we talked about. I think Atini's in the list. Vampiro Nas is what you're expecting. Those are expensive. The money does go fast for both sides.
It is very nice that Mildesorte now has Cleaver out and Echelon. So once the Unity comes out, Unity will actually start boosting pretty efficiently and start breaking those really big, scary eyes quite well considering.
Yeah, considering. They have a lot of subroutines, but it's nearly the best you can ask for. And in terms of some boosts here, if I'm not mistaken, Mildesorte has a turbine, which if you can assemble that rig, you're actually dealing with a lot of the ice on the table for just what the subroutines cost. That is a red Rozeki. It's actually a fermenter. That's always a fun altar to take on Yakuza's pretty well-known green orb.
Yeah, so once a turbine comes out, as you said, then
it's a different game.
It is a totally different game. The Echelon and the Cleaver especially. Well, for Cleaver it doesn't matter because Tattoo Ball is the only...
I think Tattoo Ball is the only barrier, yeah.
Right, but it will matter so much because 2 extra strength, that is incredible.
Subliminal, byproduct, back in hand. So we'll see here, the money is going to matter. That fermenter is, again, another insurance policy because it is about credits. I don't know, it's going to take me a couple of minutes to count how many credits Council they have. 1 more off the subliminal. And I don't know, is Council going potentially too slow? Because Mildesorte is kind of getting closer there, but install into the remote server. We're hoping for that Regenesis. All the agendas, again, they can be all in Archives. Ideally, one of your best turns is have Mildesorte steal 6 in a turn, because then you don't have to worry about that last Steelskin scarring.
That's true. Then literally it doesn't matter. 6 points is definitely legal, and if one of them is a bacterial, then it's game over. They can even just econ first and then get a massive punitive off for the win.
Yeah, the bacteria is also really interesting because you can draw 7, so you know the top of R&D is fine. You have more padding if Maw goes off that turn if you lose the punitives. And it's a 3 of in this list. While Fuji, Acid Retrieval, what generally to a lot of folks seems like the more obvious inclusion into a 5-3 deck that wants to hurt you is actually the less common of the 2 giant agendas.
Yeah, when I saw this deck before, when it was still running Obokata, it was usually 3 Obokata and then 3 Bacterial. And then I actually assumed that Obokata would be the strongest card or the strongest agenda in the matchup, but people that I talked to who played it always said, no, it's Bacterial.
Yeah.
Because Bacterial sets up those combos that are always lethal. You can sort of play around Obokata. You can play around Bacterial because you also can't decide not to steal it.
And also with Obokata, again, flipping into Archives, you have so many other options, but Fuji is the surprise. It's not a snare, but it's half of a snare for free. Now it's a moshing. We're getting rid of a Hippo, some other economy options, Dirty Laundry. We haven't had a run yet. There is the 2 last programs that we need on the table. We have the MU, that's a Turbine, +2 strength to all non-AI icebreakers. That's just going to be +2 flat on everything. And the Unity, which, as you said, Captain, that's going to boost the whole board. 1 for 3. So now, yeah, all code gates, basically paying for subroutines. I do think we have to boost once, but Council knows the runs are going to start to begin.
So where do we start running from this point?
I think you go HQ, because that's less likely where the agendas are. I think they'd have to be either in the remote or in archives. But Council here, triple advance. I think we're going to see Regenesis. We're going to be on game point. Regenesis, a wall of text, says reveal a face-down agenda. You add it to the score area. You don't actually score it, so Fuji's not going to deliver any net damage. But now we're on game point. That's a bit of a reader often, but open deck list, the players should know this interaction coming. So now Council install advance on top of an Anoetic Void. There's just a chance we can play genuine Glacier in a remote.
Yeah, every time they now install advance, that literally just says you need to come into the remote and probably you need to deal with the Anoetic. And if you don't, then I just win the next turn.
Exactly. No ways to deal with the Anoetic. There's no Light the Fires. There's no Pinhole Threading. So Mildesort doesn't have the credit advantage. Figuring a way to get in again. No ice has been res, so the credit pool is going to, it's going to be eaten at from Council.
It is very hard to count Council's credits, but I think they might legitimately be at more than 12. Because I think that Mildesort is at 18 currently. I think Council has more than double that at this point.
Yeah, when you don't bring enough tokens to an event, you start asking around, does anybody bring credits? I'm playing with these ones. We'll print them out. So we'll see we start running Turbine on the table. So Echelon will be 5 strength now, right? That's exactly where you want it to be.
Yeah.
So Anansi for 3 is not a great trade. I don't think he res that for 8 credits.
No, I think you rely on code gates from now on because at the very least the Unity they'll have to boost.
Yeah. I think Mildesort here has an option of actually charging the remote server and forcing the Anoetic before there's an agenda in the remote server.
I think actually that might be the play right now.
I'm looking at the list too. There's no anemones, so you're not going to take any damage unless you let subroutines fire.
Well, he is going HQ.
HQ's the run. Again, Ma can deliver some of those pieces into archives. They will be face down as well. There's a Saisenton, 3 credits to break. This thing has mean text on it, but again, this is why you don't face check on turn 1. Put into all your HB decks, win all your Swiss rounds.
He is electing, he is electing to Hippo it.
Yeah, not the most taxing ice. Whether you want to keep that, again, depends where the code gates are. And speaking of code gates, that's an Atini. We have threat text online, so nobody's making any decisions here. That's just going to be 3 net damage subroutines. It's strength 5, if I'm not mistaken, so that's going to be boost, break, 4 credits. If you steal an agenda here, you can easily lose the game. Looking at, I think, 4 in hand. There can't be some padding. Putting on the table, hey, that's a really good strategy. Oh, bacteria programming in hand. So now we got some work to do. That is look at the top 7 of the R&D. Kind of do whatever you want with them. Draw them to hand, put them back on top of the deck, discard them, rearrange them. This is one of the cards that I think takes the longest for Morse Corpse. Again, Council with 9 rounds of Swiss plus some top cut probably has some experience with how to play this one out. But now it's really difficult because if Mildesort goes a bit more aggressive to try and get the modifier to get a punitive out of hand, there's a chance you steal another agenda, and then you're definitely dead this turn unless you can close out the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that Mildesort has to look for a way to. I don't think he can econ up fast enough to survive double punitive at this point. Because even with Resident 2 Ice, Council is still at so many.
It's about
credits.
26, 27 credits. Now, I'm not sure how many clicks are left in the turn. I think the Turbine came down first. You can take 8 off, and then still, I think the best case scenario is that Council spends a lot of credits, and you hit the Steel Skin, and then you do survive double punitive. Triple punitive is a different question, but I'm not sure if the money holds up for that. Hoshiko will flip, though. That can be important. That is 2 credits up front and a Link, so you're actually up 3 credits for that exchange.
That is super relevant, actually.
Yeah, and then Link stacks really well into double punitive as much as, Trace, not really a thing in Standard that you have to worry about. This is one of the few cards that does see consistent play. So going back, hitting a punitive might be the only line here. You do know it costs money, but if you pad the hand, add 6 to hand, that's a really daunting trying to line up. If you had 6 to hand and the corporation either has 10 in hand, what do you do when you try and randomize with the Maw? It's hard. You need a bigger die.
Well, I brought a D20 to the event just in case.
Easy. You're prepared.
So we've only seen one Your Digital Life so far.
Yes.
So
YDL, punitive.
I don't think that gets it. I don't think that's enough. It might.
It might be.
It might be, actually.
It depends what mildesorte does. Again, like we said, one option is economy. One option is like, I need to Maw this thing. We have 4 on Fermenter. That's not that much better than clicking the library accounts. I think it's only 2 pips on the Red Zeki.
With the amount that they have been drawing, I'm pretty certain they must have one. Like, because I was also maybe under the impression that they hadn't drawn.
Oh, the punitives?
No, I mean
the steel skin.
Your Digital Lives.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, and now looking at 7 too, right? But Council, definitely thinking through this. 7 cards is a lot. Also deciding if you don't win this turn, what's the future couple turns? You know, you get that sort of Jinteki seeing the future is alive and well in the theme of this card.
This entire deck, yeah, the actual game plan is relatively straightforward. But once the bacterial gets stolen, that's when, you know, you go into the tank and you have to start tanking.
Yeah, the paths open up. It's pretty wide. We see the hand there. I don't know if mildesorte has a steel skin. I don't think he has the last one.
Oh, I love to see this. Council out there with the notebook with the note taking.
Yes.
Especially for bacterial, that is something, if I was playing this deck, I would do that too.
Also, a huge advantage. I've saw this at this event. A lot of players from different places speaking different languages. You can take notes pretty freely without having other players understand. We have about 15 minutes left in the round. I think we're going to get to a pretty natural conclusion here. It's hard to tell what the result is, but Council has a lot of cards in hand, so definitely some put back on top of R&D. I'm not sure if any hit archives, but HQ is now pretty padded. mildesorte here, I think, has 2 clicks left. Looking at the credits again, we'll be up 2 in a link. That can matter. But 8 credits only on the table.
Yeah, some serious math have to happen here. There's plenty of money on the table. There's still 2 liberated to be clicked. There's a botulus right there. Yep, taking the botulus money.
Let's see if that's 4 or that's 6. It'd have to be 6, I reckon. Yeah. There you go, 6. That's a good start.
If it had been 4, you'd just click the liberated. And clicking the liberated as well.
So I don't know if mildesorte did that. He had a lot of time to do the math, let's be honest. But Your Digital Life is going to change that. Now, Hoshi flipping in 2 credits, draw a card. We're at 15, 20 in a link versus 27. Yeah. That honestly feels good. That's doable.
Yeah, there's no way that they can double punitive through this.
So we'll see again, Council. Sometimes this might be a good window just to push into a remote server. You have enough cards, you'll have a full hand for Anoetic. Your Digital Life double punitive maybe gets there, but you're still worried if the steel skin is there. You've spent a lot just to find out. So Council thinking through a pivotal turn in the game. A lot of money, but again, if the remote is challenged, that money's going to go relatively quickly, and mildesorte is definitely paying less to break any ice than his res, at least on the first run. Man, punitive math. You ever brought a sheet to an event that just tells you what the numbers are, the breakpoints?
I have not.
Council might have, you know, this down pat, but figuring out around link, figuring out around how many times you can land it, we'll see here. Council knew the top deck, so we're working with totally known information to this point. Punitive, it starts. That's going to be 3 credits for a Trace 5. mildesorte has a link here. So to get this to land, you need to spend an additional 16 credits?
That is a lot of credits.
You can't double punitive here, can you? Now, if you YDL, like, you probably do it first. Maybe there's some sort of, like, psych out here where you kind of zig when they think you're going to zag and you weave it between, because...
They're not boosting.
Not boosting. Just getting 1 out of hand, trading 3 credits for 4. Subliminal push. That punitive was like an economic warfare. Remote server. Pushing in the remote server. Ice in again. Now, even without an advance of the remote server, this could be a regenesis for the game. Now, if mildesorte runs archives, it's hard with the Spin Doctor, but there's a line here where you charge the Spin Doctor, charge archives, but I think that's probably the safest line here.
It might be.
But yeah, value punitive. You love to see it. As much as mildesorte had the credits to get out of that hole, I do think flipping archives here turns off the threat of losing to regenesis. There's no seamless launch. There's no like advancement acceleration in this list.
Yeah, if mildesorte goes to check archives, then the regenesis plan is off the table. But then, of course, the punitive plan is back on the table.
Yeah, but if you didn't have a last turn, do you have it this turn?
No, I assume you don't.
So we see in the hand, we have the 20, we got the Hoshiko draw. We have all our breakers. The last steel skin could be nice. Again, there's no anemones in the list, so you know that it's only numbers when it comes down to the ice. There's no surprises. Tattoo Bola could be the only economic surprise that I do think leverages more favorably in Council's favor. So we'll see here. Mildesort, even 0 to 4 points, worrying about time coming up. 10 minutes left in the round, a bit more. We're charging R&D. There has to be Regenesis respect this turn. Getting a Maw trigger again. The top card, Council knows, if I'm pretty sure, the top card of R&D here. Now, if there is an agenda, you can always shuffle with Spin Doctor, so this could do double duty, but if it's not a steal or a trashable, at least you get a Maw. Maybe then you can run Archives, but the Spin Doctor's been on the table. That's an Anoetic Void. 1 credit to trash, or do you want a Maw?
You could consider...
Thank you, Council, showing to the stream.
You could consider trashing this and then going in again, but at that point, Council might, because we didn't see whether they put multiple cards on top of R&D or not.
Yeah, I think they did.
They did, then there's probably no point. They didn't even res any eyes because they knew the top card was no agenda.
So we do get a Maw here, 1 punitive out, so this can be quite powerful. Now here again, if you don't check Archives, Regenesis is the real threat. We've seen 3 Rashidas. There's not that much else you expect in the remote server. You've seen the second Anoetic now. You're assuming that we know there's an Anoetic in the remote server. Spin Doctors, I think we've seen 2, if not 3. You have to run Archives here. Spin Doctor first.
Yeah.
We're charging. So now, maybe you don't need to run the Spin Doctor again, because if you steal, mind you, if you do steal, yeah, we're on 3 points there. If you steal 2 agendas, you win regardless. So maybe Fuji into Punitive gets you a window here. Credits are pretty healthy. Atini is probably the best trade for the corporation there, spending more to res than the runner does to break. Mildesort thinking whether he's continuing Tattoo Bola.
That also screws with the math a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good trade for the corporation. Pay 2, gain 4. While the runner runs 1, you actually are ahead. We're going to do that swap is install swap.
Let's see the Spin Doctor.
Yeah, let's see here, because you can't give 2 agendas because the punitive windows. Now, you also don't die to double Fuji while we have 4 cards in hand. If you steal the winning Fuji, you win before the text becomes relevant. So Spin Doctor, I would see, likely gets popped here.
Just checking the face downs real quick.
Yeah, making sure. Again, there's a lot in there. I'm not sure if any came out. Spin Doctor is going to leave the room. We're going to put 2 back. Again, there could be a second Spin Doctor, I think, in the remote server. I think we saw 1 earlier. I'm not sure if we saw 2, but we're going to shuffle those back. That does maybe, you know, now if you can run R&D back, it's a different card. It's no longer the Anoetic that wasn't trashed.
Mildesort doesn't have a ton of credits, so, like, to be fair, all the ice gets broken for relatively cheap.
Yeah.
But even with the breakers being at incredibly high strength, he still has to pay 2-3 credits per ice, and that is going to add up pretty fast.
Nothing. Your digital life, some hedge funds, some money. Again, that could have been shuffled straight back. Council understanding the punitive window has closed a bit. So the card in the remote server could just be a 5-3 that's safer there than in hand. Now, with 15 credits, mind you, the Maw is also just kind of devaluing that Anoetic. You need cards in hand.
So it will be interesting to see whether Council next turn, whether they advance, and then maybe do something else, and then just say, yep, this is the agenda, come and get it.
I think Mildesort was considering clicking for a credit there, but yeah, with the Liberated, you can go much faster. So we'll see we charge again. You can run back on R&D. You always have 1 click left to hit the punitive if you're worried about that potential lethal. I think Fuji is the one that sets it up a bit more cleanly. There's the Anansi again, spending 8 while the runner spends 3 if we've done the math correctly. That can't feel great as much as you do need to res some ice.
Yeah. They don't have a choice because they need to text out the runner at some point, and it's really hard to text this kind of Hoshiko out, but you need to do it in some way.
Off the top.
It looks like is it a Spin Doctor?
It's the final Spin Doctor, trashing for 2, Mildesort. Only on 5 credits, at least in the credit pool, but click for 4 off the Liberated. On 9 will be 8, mind you, after Hoshiko trades the last credit for a card. Council now drawing an unknown card. What's in the remote server now? We know it's an agenda. We've seen every Spin Doctor.
That's true.
We've seen every Rashida. We know that where the Anoetic was, it's back somewhere in the deck. That's a 5-3 agenda. Icing on top of the Anansi. Again, we know 2 hippos are accounted for.
And double advancing the card in the remote.
This is potentially the final turn. Council is showing game point here on the table. We have 6 minutes left in the round. I don't think we're going to get into time. It's important to understand. I'm not sure which player is the higher seed, but I don't think we're going to have to get to remembering that.
Look at Council's money. Like, most of it is gone at this point.
Yes.
I don't think that remote is particularly safe right now.
And with only 4 cards in hand, you can fire Anoetic twice. Can Mildesorte on 8 credits run the remote server 3 times? Potentially. If you get a cheap Maw somewhere, you actually save yourself a run back. It might be reasonable. And you know, with no Spin Doctors, there's not going to be more cards suddenly in hand.
You could even consider, like, if it's the final run and you know that you can get in, you can take damage from some of these eyes just fine if you know it's the winning agenda, which you know it is because it's advanced.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you're a bit risky, the punitive, but you're right. You can send it just a wee bit here. Mildesorte. I think that was a click for draw.
I think that was that Hoshiko?
I don't know. I'm not sure if he lost a credit or not. So we'll see here. Again, huge turn. Mildesorte understands that. Liberate for money. Again, how many cards Council has in hand is so important. It looks like maybe only 3. That's a huge number. Again, Anoetic cares about even numbers here. We're going to charge our remote server. Council can lose his 3-pointer. It won't lose the game, but you'll definitely be behind on points with time looming.
So with the amount of credits that they have, they're now looking at all 4 eyes and they're like, what is the most what is the most value I can get out of this one piece of ice I can likely rest?
Show me the code gates with 2 Atinis, Vampire Nasa. Also pretty good.
Yeah, that's one of the best ones you can hope for right now.
You're paying 7. Now, the runner doesn't have to break all the subroutines, mind you. There's a whole bunch of these. The credit swing ones, it's in your best interest to break those if you're breaking some other ones. Net damage, you don't want to take into this matchup, but allowing the corporation to draw 2 cards, actually, you can't let any of those fire. Drawing 2 cards into Anoetic, that's a mistake.
Yeah, I think you break all of this right now.
Yeah.
And he's considering it.
That's a 5 to break again. Seeing this breaker suite and understanding you can still cost the runner 5 credits doesn't feel too bad.
If we see a Tachibola right now, that would be huge.
Tatubola, you can, in theory, bounce off of this. You don't have to go through. Council can't score out. I still think you're in a good spot, but having an ice in hand, too, you know, now swapped in, gaining 4, we're back up on credits. We're on 5 credits. That can res a Sais and Tan. Not that much else, so we'll see the Anoetic if we're going to pop it here. That's the Void. Pay 2 and 2 cards from hand. It's not random, corpse choice. That leaves with only 1 card, so we have to go back here. We can break the server. 5 credits up front, though, is really difficult. Maybe you liberate it, run back. I think that gets you through. I think we have 2 clicks left.
Yeah, and then it becomes a question of if it's a bacterial, then it becomes incredibly dangerous for Mildesorte. Because 3 credits is not a lot, but on the other hand, your digital life changes that map significantly.
I think we have 2 your digital life accounted for. We saw 1 in the bin, 1 played. But you're right, that is the huge jump. Finishing liberated, Mildesorte.
It seemed like they were going back and forth for a second.
Hard decision again. Going back here, there's no border control. There's nothing that's going to stop you unfairly. It's just ice and Anoetic, and we just don't have the cards in hand. Let's see. Again, the Tattoo Bolo, we paid 5 for the Vampire Nasa. We're going deeper. Nothing rezzed. Anoetic. We're going to access the card first. Let's see what it is. Regenesis. Oh, that makes sense. Just pushing that out, forcing. Now we're 4-4. With time coming up, who's the higher seed actually is going to be relevant. I'm going to consult the documents. So if time is called, my documents have failed me. We'll find out soon.
But that was an incredibly good block.
Yes,
from Council.
and that means, you know, the Archives run was so important. Now, it just comes down to, like, can you afford to run the right stuff? But the big thing here, with 2 Regenesis out, if you can keep Archives clean, you don't actually have to run until Council install advances. There's nothing else that's advanceable besides agendas. I'm relying on chat here saying Council's 1 seed ahead, so Mildesorte actually has to find another point in the next, I'm assuming, about 5 minutes left in the round. 2 minutes left in the round. You can get some accesses again. In terms of the multi-access, twinning coming down is a bit too late this turn. Paladin Puemo, she left. 4 credits is too many.
Too many credits. Council click for credits?
Understanding, just have to hold down the fort here. 3 credits is all Mildesorte has. Credit. You can get that gamble down now. Understanding when time is called, the active player finishes their turn, the opponent gets 1 more turn. What that means, you can just go wild into central servers, not have to worry about Fuji or punitive, any repercussions. Sometimes, you know, you can sort of play that dance.
So if you're Mildesorte, which server would you charge here?
I think there's not a lot of cards. Anoetic Void, it's unlikely to discard the agendas.
Yes.
So going HQ, there's actually a pretty high density. It looks like we're calling that. I'm not sure if time was called here, but we're going in. There's 4 cards in hand. No matter what, Maw's going to hit if you're not winning the game. Unless the last word Genesis is your digital life. So here, Maw fires. We've got some randomization. About 1 minute left in the round. So we're going to Maw a different card. YDL goes back to hand again with 3 cards in hand. That's basically unplayable. So we'll see here. Mildesorte does have to figure out how to get another Axis. Again, our timer here is a bit rough, but we're about 40 seconds left in the round. I believe it's Council's turn now.
He could definitely go into HQ again, or he could go check archives.
Yeah. With only 5 credits again on the last turn, you can just let Atini fire. You don't care about the text on Fuji. Nothing really matters as long as you don't flatline to Saiz and Tan. So that does definitely make things a bit interesting. Again, I believe it's Council's turn. Trying to figure out what to do here. Again, they just have to basically hold down the fort. Your digital life for 3 credits with a 5-card hand, I think. Maybe click for credit after that. But time in the round is coming up pretty soon. We'll see. It looks like it's Mildesorte's turn that it might be called on again. Whether this table started exactly on time, we'll be able to tell, but time in the round.
We were talking about the biggest your digital life. That is the smallest your digital life I have seen all weekend.
And you'll take it with 9 credits. You can res any ice in your deck, so now only having 4 credits, we'll see if it's enough. Hoshiko trading a card for a credit. Or excuse me, the opposite. So understanding here, if time was called, you can take your time. The game does slow down a bit here.
Yeah, and this is definitely a thinker. When he needs to steal that agenda, and where do you go for it?
Whether do you, as Council, do you hide them in archives? Understanding again, that is the most taxing ice. Atini, you can just take the damage here. These cards don't matter. The game is over. Taka, second, Unity, and the price. We get an Axis here and we get a Maw. From this, you can consider transitioning to archives where we get to see a couple of the mod cards. Spin Doctors have been gone. You can't really run a Nancy last click. Oh! Fuji! Mildesorte finding it in HQ. That's going to be 7 points. Again, the Fuji text doesn't matter, but well played to both players. I believe Council, that is their second loss. Big hug just off camera between the two of them. Very, very sweet to see.
Oh, you love to see that.
But what a game. Again, Council, absolutely like ridiculous credit lead, and Mildesorte just staying on track saying, I'm not going to run. I'm just going to get all my breakers down. I have a late game engine that will be able to contest some of this ice. I have the money and the value punitive push in the remote server is when the tide really changed.
The game went from 0 to 100 so quick.
Yeah, slow, but then quick, but then quicker. But well played to both players. Again, Mildesorte is going to continue on the lower brackets. I believe Council, that is their second loss, but well played. Such a fantastic finish. Again, we went from 260 players now. We're down to about 8 after this round. Our top cut is going to continue on. Again, running a tight ship here. We're going to be very soon on to the next round. Captain, I reckon you're going to be back for some more commentary later today. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here.
Oh, it's been really fun. My name is Andre from the Metropole Grid here on Null Signal. This is 2023, the World Championship in Barcelona. We'll be back with more Top Cut in just a bit. Don't go anywhere.